Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We are now going to have our next main stage presentation, which is Preserving and Transforming Homes in the COVID-19 Environment. And we have two guest speakers with us today. We have Luz Soto and Janet Sprisler. We're going to start with Luz this morning, so let me give you a little bit of information about her. Luz Soto is with the Cabrillo Economic Development Corporation, and she is the Director of Property Management and Resident Services. Luz oversees ownership and management of CEDC's residential portfolio, 23 affordable housing communities serving some 1,115 low-income families. With 25 plus years of property management experience, Luz is responsible for financial wealth, compliance, and physical condition of the properties. She also oversees the Resident and Community Services Department into implementing policy and procedures and fostering teamwork amongst staff, residents, and the municipalities within the CEDC operates. Prior to joining CEDC, okay, we're going to go with Cabrillo Economic Development Corporation. That's easier for me, evidently. Luz was a senior VP property management and resident services with Adobe Communities, serving over 6,300 low-income people. Luz's topic today is COVID-19's impact on existing multifamily affordable housing. Welcome, Luz.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I start, I'm going to share my PowerPoint. If I'm able to share the screen. Oh.
New platforms are always a joy, aren't they?
Absolutely. I thought that I had this.
We practiced yesterday, everyone, just so you know.
I did. Okay, so I'm going to try to share a file. That'll probably be okay. Do you see it?
Yes.
Do you see my PowerPoint and you can hear me clearly, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much and for having me here with this annual home presentation. As was mentioned, my name is Luz Soto. I am the Director of Property Management and Resident Services for CEDC, which is short for Cabrillo Economic Development Corporation. So as again was mentioned, CDC owns and manages a multi-family portfolio of affordable housing communities for families, farm worker families, seniors, and individuals with special needs in Ventura County. Our portfolio is of 23 communities with a little over 1,100 homes. I was invited to speak about the impacts that COVID-19 has had in our affordable housing industry, specifically how it affected our organization and the way we manage our affordable rental properties. I wanted to say that CDC's priorities during this crisis have been the safety of staff and residents, and to do everything that we can to stop the spread of the virus by strictly following and enforcing established safety guidelines. So I don't think I am the only one who can say that COVID-19 has affected every aspect of our lives and especially our work life. So I want to share with you the impacts that we had. And I'm going to go back a little bit with this PowerPoint. The impacts of COVID-19 within our affordable rental portfolio. Of course, we had operational impacts, financial, the impact to our residents, and the social impact that this crisis has had. And I was thinking, where do I start? Where do I start to share everything that has gone through, the things that we have experienced. And I want to share a little bit of the things that changed for us in our operations. As most businesses, we moved to conduct business remotely and virtually. The site staff sheltered in closed offices, communicating with residents and the public by phone, email, text, newsletters, and announcements posted on their doors. We had to modify our policies in regards to rent collections, and of course, in observing the eviction moratoriums that have been in place. Our semi-annual inspections have been on hold, and we are currently only addressing urgent and emergency repairs in the units. We also have established, plans and ongoing safety protocols for our staff. Okay. I think I'm going a little too fast. So our financial impact, and as all of you can imagine, our biggest impact was on rent losses. We have a lot of families that have not been able to pay the rent. The also higher unit turnover and longer unit turnaround, especially at a senior building, interestingly. The costs and upgrades to comply with safety requirements, and the purchases of personal protection equipment for staff and residents. Also, an expense, and a significant expense has been the increase of cleaning and sanitation supplies to make sure that all of our staff, has the necessary PPE. But also our residents, the impact that has had on our residents. Initially, we conducted a survey, the COVID-19 resident survey, that showed that at least 30% of our residents were affected one way or another. The loss of wages from businesses closures and or reduction of working hours. Some families had to leave work to care for their children due to school closures, and having to take time off due to exposure to the virus and sickness. So the social impacts, we are not able to do things the way we were used to. We are working in isolation. We close all community rooms at the properties, the playgrounds, computer labs, and those properties with swimming pools, those were closed, especially during the hottest summer in history, probably. No more resident meetings for now, no celebrations, everybody's working remotely. We're not able to interact with in person with our coworkers. And a lot of people reported isolation, and there has been an increase in youth depression and increased cases of domestic violence. So CDC's response has been first and foremost to care for the staff as essential workers. CDC created a safe environment by implementing safety guidelines and making the necessary changes and upgrades to the workplace at corporate and at the rental offices to keep staff and residents safe. And brought much needed resources through grants and donations, provide ongoing PPE to staff on a regular basis. That's something that we check with staff every week. Do you have the necessary PPE? And all this is being done to ensure that we all continue to work and continue to do it safely. Some of the changes that we were required to do and that we already did, we, especially at our corporate office, we installed the clear plexiglass barriers at the reception desk. Our reception is the one that comes into direct contact with the public on a daily basis. We installed hand sanitizer stations throughout the office space, visible one-way and safe distance floor markers. And yes, even the restrooms, we had the vacant/occupy signs to ensure that we don't congregate in the restrooms. And also we upgraded our HVAC filtration systems. We did something similar to our rental offices as well. One thing that I found it very interesting is that we, the door to the manager's office are being replaced with Dutch doors. And that brought me back to way long time ago when those were very common. But interestingly now, we needed to create a barrier where the manager had a little more control as to who was approaching them. And so we felt that Dutch door would be a great alternative to be able to ensure of that. The same thing, hand sanitizers everywhere. The one-way routes, you had to have in the community room one way to enter, one way to exit. And of course, we're checking that this happens on a daily basis. We're still working under closed doors. We are expecting to fully open, of course, depending on how things go with the pandemic, early this 2021. I am very happy when I share information about the work that our resident services is doing during this crisis. This is a team that has worked nonstop since the beginning. Through the grants and donations that we have received, from the Food Share County of Ventura, our team has been nonstop distributing food to all the residents, caring them. They work closely with the resident managers and a maintenance team. And this is something that we did not ask them to do. This is something that they do, and they do it with all of their heart because they see the need. So they have, since April, they have been nonstop distributing food, distributing resources to the families in need. We attend them after receiving information that there was a lot of children that felt depressed, that there were children that didn't have nothing to do, nothing to look forward each day. We decided that we were going to attempt to do our summer program virtually. And I am happy to say that it was a great success. We offer 6 weeks of virtual summer program. And, you're probably thinking, well, how they do it? That must be boring. Well, it was not, because what we did is prior to each week, we distributed activity bags with their supplies, with their snacks, with water, with PPE every week. So these children were looking forward and receiving their bags on Monday for the summer program week. We were excited to see we had speakers coming in. We didn't think at first that it was going to be possible that we were going to be able to engage the children, but we had 2 or 3 children in the stadium, the parents joining the Zoom presentation. So I'm very happy to say that even resources, they do wellness checks on a regular basis. They offer the resources available, and of course they have to do this by phone, email, text. They have been doing a little bit of tutorials on how to with a resident on how to create their own emails and how to do that. So there has been a lot of learnings as well for our families. And in regards to our employees, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act has been very beneficial to some of our staff members that have experienced exposure to the virus or needed to care for family members. So what does the future hold for us and for many other affordable housing communities? Most physical changes that we have done are permanent and will be featured in the design of new developments. But the full impact of the COVID-19 is still unknown, because we're still not through. We're just doing the best that we can, tracking everything that we're doing, and just hopeful that this will end very soon. But first, and most importantly, the safety of our staff and residents will always be at the forefront. And thank you. This has been my presentation. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Luz. Appreciate it very much. That was a very good presentation, and you guys have worked really hard to make it safe for your residents and your customers. We appreciate that. So next we have Janet Frisler with Formatic Property Management, Inc. Janet has more than 20 years of property management experience, beginning with family-owned company to managing 400 plus units with a focus on underperforming properties. Using her knowledge and experience, Janet worked with large multifamily organizations such as Greystar, JPI, and Pinnacle. She became well known for her ability to turn underperforming portfolios into positive cash flow with NOI buildings. Sorry. In 2018, Janet became a consultant for single-family property management companies. In 2019, Janet joined Formatic Property Management, where she sees her mission as helping single-family investors get the most out of their real estate investment while helping residents who realize their future investor potential. Janet's topic today is property management in 2020. Please welcome Janet.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. Again, I'm Janet Sprisler with Formatic Property Management. I am located out here in the Ventura area. I've been out here in the Ventura area for a little bit over 20 years now, handling not only multifamily, but now in the single family realm. And let's face it, if you are a landlord out there, your mind has been spinning with what has happened with COVID, with legislation. So I'm going to go ahead and start my screen share. And I just want to make sure that you can see that. Marta?
No, we can't see it yet.
Let's see. Sorry about this. Okay. Now it showed the other day, so it is what it is.
I know, right? All right. Do you want to can you go?
I can just go through my stuff here with you. Let's try it one more time.
You might need to do a share file instead of share screen. That's what I had to do.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and just go through it here with you. So again, I'm Janet with Formatic Property Management. I do a little disclaimer to let you know that I am not a lawyer. We are very versed at Formatic Property Management on legislation and the legalities that face landlords. At Formatic Property Management, again, we're not a law firm, and any advice shared is not to be considered legal advice, but please consult an attorney should you have any legal questions regarding your property. So I always have to throw that out there just to get it taken care of. With that said, 2020 has been a year, hasn't it? I think everyone's feeling the pain of it. In January, so much more legislation has happened in this year for property management than any year previously in history. That includes, starting with January 1st, we had AB 1482, the new landlord or the Tenant Protection Act that came in effect January 1st, which really had people's heads turned with what needed to have happen. Then in March, we had COVID, and legislation was changing pretty much daily, up to even the last minute here on August 31st with the newest state legislation of AB 3088. And keep in mind, with COVID, not only was the state chipping in, but the counties, the cities, the judicial system kicked in, the feds kicked in. Everyone really didn't know what end was what. So it was really a time for landlords just to get lost in the confusion. All they knew was that they did not have any money coming through the door, and what were they going to be doing? So I want to step back to what happened on January 1st. AB 1482 came through. It's the Tenant Protection Act. And in there, each landlord had to answer a simple question. Did they have a single family home, or did they have two properties or more deeded on the same title and they did not live on the property? If that was true, you were either a part of AB 1482, which meant that you had guidelines on what you could do and not do with your tenant. Upon asking them to move out, you had to pay them equal to 1 month's rent, or possibly it has to do with rent increases. So you can only do 5% plus cost of living for whatever county you're in. So you had to really look all that up to see what was going on with that. And you had to notify them. So all notices had to go out by June 1st. And I know a lot of people on July was like, really, how important was it? Well, because of COVID, we really don't know what that is going to happen or what kind of fines and fees you're going to be looking at for not having it done. And then as of August 1st, all your leases and your renewal leases had to have AB 1482 in it. It had to be check marked. It has to be notified. Everyone has to be updated with what is happening. And there's a lot of folks that are still out there that really do not know what they can do next. So if you do have, so what I'm asking for, if you are a landlord, get the notice out. If you're unsure of what that looks like, please feel free to reach out to me. I can help you with that. But you have to get that notice out. People need to know, are they covered or are they not covered under that Protection Act? Now we go into March. And March, everything hits the fan, right? You have COVID happening. People are worried about their health, their children, they're going to school. The world closes down. And on top of that, COVID legislation hits in. So the strictest legislation had to be followed, which caused a lot of confusion amongst landlords because they didn't know which was stricter. And then it became a puzzle piece. So, and that puzzle piece had to be like, okay, this portion is stricter than this portion. What do I go with? So with that said, everything sort of kind of calmed down on August 31st when the state enacted AB 3088. And that gives the tenants protection. It's the Tenant and Landlord Protection Act. So what it does is it covers both single family owners, multifamily, with what can be expected on rents. What can they do? What can't they do? Because before it was a tenant could say, I have COVID, and they were covered. They didn't have to prove up. They didn't have to do anything about it. And people were just hoping for the best. Now, I'm always a fan of a good tenant's going to be a good tenant. They're going to go out. There's plenty of money still out there so that people can get the help that they need. But with that, in Ventura County, they started following it on August 31st, except for those cities who had already in their city moratoriums that they were following the state of emergency. On October 12th, the city of Ventura then joined in with AB 3088. The city council decided to go away from it and follow what everyone else is following just to take the confusion off the table. So people wonder, I get a lot of calls, what happens from March to August rent? That is a civil suit. That paperwork needed to be done and sent out to those tenants by September 1st. From September 1st on, now we're looking at doing a 15-day notice if they haven't paid rent. They have 15 days whether to tell you, can they pay rent? What, due to COVID, why they have not paid rent. And they have to prove it up in some shape or form, which was not there before. And they are signing a document that says under perjury that they will be able to prove that up. And with that, if they can only, they need to pay 25% of their rent per month up until we hit February 1st. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what really February 1st is going to be looking like for us. And for those who are like, well, you know what? I'm going to try pushing the buttons and doing it my way. One of the laws that went into effect January 1st is $20 million is set aside for tenants that need legal help. Don't play with the system. It's not worth your property. It's not worth your mental state. When can a landlord take a unit back? Because that's also a lot of the questions that I'm receiving. And a landlord can take a unit back 3 ways.
Janet, you just turned your camera off.
Oh my goodness. I'm back. It's a new system, keep in mind. Anyhow, when can a landlord take back a unit? When a home is sold and the buyer's going to live in the unit. Upon escrow taking place a 60-day notice is then given to the tenants. Listen, no one can guarantee they're going to be out in 60 days. If you go into eviction, you're looking at another 60 to 90 days. It's just what it is. But going into that situation, you know who's going to move, who's not going to move. A lot of people are like, I'm just going to give a 30-day notice. That is not the law. You cannot make your own rules when it comes to this, because what we're seeing is there's a lot of language in there and says, here's how you can sue them. So don't put yourself in that situation. There's a habitability issue. So this is for life and safety. I've had people say, well, I really wanted to change. I wanted to paint and I wanted to put in new flooring. That's not what this is. This is asbestos. This is lead. This is, you've already tried to get them out forward prior because you know that there's a problem with their health if they stay in there and they just did not move because of COVID. Now's when you can go ahead and you have to prove it up in court. And the final one is that you have, and you're going to have to prove this one up in court, that due to COVID, either the landlord or an immediate family member needs to move into the unit. If you try to pull this one, you're going to go to court on it, and it's just not worth that lawsuit. So note that you really need that information. COVID is a sticky time, and a lot of people want to dabble in it with whatever they think should be happening. I've had people say, well, I want to take back my property. It's my second home. It's not going to happen until February. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused with what they can and can't do when it comes to property management. So I would love to take questions now. I know that there's a lot of information that I'm giving out because I know that people have specific questions in regards to their property management, but really it comes down to knowing what you can and can't do with COVID.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Janet. Luz, do you want to come back on screen? I don't have any questions in the chat, although people can put them in the chat or the Q&A box. It's funny because these are two very different presentations, clearly. And I'm just curious, Janet, what have your property owners, have they had to do anything in addition for keeping their are they able to inspect their properties considering COVID and keeping things safe for their tenants? Have you had to stop property inspections, annual inspections of the units?
We have not, but with that said, we are a very virtual company. So we sent apps out to those tenants that needed to do a site inspection. We walk them through how it has to be done. They take videos of each and every nook because it's a 360 that happens. So we're seeing every nook and cranny of the unit. And we're able to then take that video and send it on to the owner, which when we do our site checks, we do the same thing. We're going through with this camera. We just allow the tenant to do it just so that we can make sure that everything is what needs to happen. When we have to send in vendors to fix things, we have to follow all the PPE guidelines as well. And for those who are having, a lot of folks are not only here, but when they go to sell a unit, I'm actually sitting there for the guidelines with the realtors, just to make sure that when those units are for sale, we're following everything. Here's your disinfectant, here's your booties, whatever they need to have happen, making sure we're getting all the right paperwork taken care of. Because my concern is for my tenant as well as my owner. And you have to take care of, the realtor has to on their end know what they can and can't do as well.
Thank you. Luz, what about you? How are you handling that?
Well, as I mentioned, so to go inside the units, we're only doing urgent and emergency items. However, we were definitely inspecting the properties to make sure that everything is fine. We're still dealing with vendors. And when we have to go in to do a move-in, for example, that has not stopped. The normal procedures have not stopped. We make sure that we do have checklists that we attach to the work orders to ensure that the resident gives us a little more information if anybody is sick in the household, is any concern. We do require that they wear a face covering and also that they stay distance from our staff that goes in, because we have to consider their well-being as well as the staff. Some of the staff, they do express concerns of going inside the units, and we have to respect that. But we definitely make sure that our properties are in excellent condition, especially now because our maintenance staff is focusing on the exterior, on all those exterior projects that they have not been able to complete. So I have to say our properties are looking great. And the semi-annual inspections, this is something that we're just on hold for now, but we are keeping an eye on the situation, and we're preparing our inventory. We're preparing everything that we need. So as soon as we're able and do it safely, we'll go in and do it. But again, I just wanted to mention that the affordable housing is also subjected to the CARES Act, which have very similar regulations in regards to the disclosure notices that we were required to give out, the 15-day notices, and it's just in the difference is that we were told to give 30-day notice for tenants to pay any balances. And so we're working with our residents. We have to follow these regulations very closely because, as you say, Janet, it's not worth to put our organizations in a lawsuit because of it. So no problem there, but it is a little complicated, and we're all very closely following all these changes and the rules to make sure that we do it right. And for us, we're not in the business of evicting people. We're in the business of housing people, and we do it with a lot of attention and care for them, working with them if they have balances, and just doing the best we can to help them out.
Right. The
Thank you.
I'm sorry. The one thing that I've noticed. Okay. The one thing that I've noticed the most with AB 3088 is when we gave out those 15-day notices. I'm a believer, again, a good tenant's always a good tenant. A bad tenant is a bad tenant. Those who were scamming moved along. It was because once you started handing out once the city of Ventura said, hey, we're now part of AB 3088, all those folks moved along, which is great because a lot of my landlords are elderly. So here they're not getting payment. They count on that to be part of their retirement. They weren't receiving any of those funds. And those folks had so much covering under the anything goes policies of COVID that once the state enacted that, it helped them out so much more. And for those that are having tenants that are struggling, there is money in our county to help them out. They can contact 211 and that tenant can help, especially if it's COVID related and it's 2 months of rent.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you, and we're running a little short on time, but I'm going to throw this out here. I think maybe to Janet first. As of today's changes, what does a landlord have to do if they need to sell their rental in regards to the tenant? So what does the landlord do with regard to the tenant if they're forced to sell their rental unit?
The owner, whoever's buying it, that owner has to move in there. And the tenant, there's nothing you can do for the tenant. You notify the tenant. Hopefully you have a really strong lease, in fact, in place that states that you do have the right to go in with a 24-hour notice to see the unit. I give 24-hour notices and let them know that 72 days, 3 days prior, because I'm not trying to upset my tenant. We all understand this is crazy. If they are currently in a lease, they are covered. If they're on a month to month, that's where you can give that 60-day notice. But if they're in a lease, you cannot just kick them out. They are buying with tenant in place, unless the owners come, unless it's a single family home and the owner will occupy the unit.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's a wrap for our session. I want to thank you both for your participation today in the Ventura County Housing Conference and in our first virtual conference. And I know there were a few glitches, but I really appreciate your patience and working with us. For everyone else, I wanted to let you know that we are about to take a 30-minute break, and that is so that you can visit our sponsor booths and participate in the speed meet and greet. So we strongly encourage you to do that. Go click on the lobby and you can go directly to the expo for the booths and networking for the speed meet and greet. And we'll see you back here in 30 minutes for our keynote speaker, who is Ophelia Basil with the UC Berkeley Turner Center for Housing and Innovation. We're really excited about having Ophelia here with us. You know, those are those things that you can do when you have a virtual conference. So please make sure you hang around, take a quick break, and head on back. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.